Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever part of the day it is for you and whatever part of the world you may be in. This is Dr. Don with your daily light point. I'm laughing because my team has been teasing me about my camera angles and uh, my positioning and backgrounds in my videos. I'm showing my age. It's all good. I embrace it. As we talk about leading through, the theme for the past few days have been centered around leading through conflict, leading through uncertainty. Today, I want to talk about leading through bias or biases, leading through bias, leading through our own bias, leading through the biases of others, leading through bias. And I was trying to find a way to simplify such a heavy term, biases, right? Biases exist in human nature. Anyone with conscious thought and experiences, over time, we form biases, some conscious, some subconscious, or intrinsic. But we form them. So how do we lead through them? Because they exist, right? And a simple way that I established a way of remembering how to approach that best, I call the 5 A's, the 5 A's of leading through bias, the 5 A's. Acknowledge, ask, allow, account, admit. Let me say it again. Acknowledge, ask, allow, account, admit. Acknowledge that our biases exist, the biases within ourselves and others, right? We can't attempt to lead through it or course correct it if we don't acknowledge that it exists, right? Walking around with some, notion that we mitigate all our biases, we're always conscious of them. The reality is that's just simply not true in the psychological makeup of the average individual. So acknowledge that they exist. They exist through our lived experiences. They exist through our perceptions or even misperceptions, right? We form mindsets and dispositions around many things in our life, and oftentimes it shapes the biases that exist in our life. So acknowledge that they exist, and oftentimes they manifest in ways that we could not have anticipated. Ask. Adopt a discovery mindset. It's discovery around ourselves or others as it relates to biases. Ask others around us, hey, do I ever present as biased toward a certain subject, certain group of people, certain concepts, certain ideas? Do I present biases? The closest people to you will let you know, yeah, you're a bit biased, right? And here's how I see it manifest. Sometimes that is the greatest point of reference to our own biases. Similarly, when we encounter individuals who appear to be biased, seek to understand the origin of their biases. Oftentimes, through dialogue, we can understand their lived experiences and we can start to get better understanding around why those biases exist. So ask, seek this understanding, discovery, right? Allow. What I mean by allow is allow the space to expand beyond our comfort zone. Because oftentimes our biases are shaped around our fears, right? We want to protect ourselves or our understanding around a certain thing or concept. And to get beyond bias means we have to oftentimes expand our comfort zone. So allow space for that. Similarly, when we're addressing people with bias, create a safe space where they believe that they can explore new ideas, new concepts that disrupt their biases that have shaped how they live. Give them space, meaning help them understand that it's safe to explore different ideas, to engage in controversial dialogue, whatever's necessary to help them unravel it. Sometimes through the conversation, they're going to unravel pain, trauma, other things that they've experienced that have shaped their bias. So we have to give them space for that. So allow it for ourselves, allow it for others. Be accountable. Be accountable or drive accountability. Be accountable for our own biases. Take responsibility for their existence. take responsibility for any pain or harm or implications of our biases, known and unknown. How are your biases informing your hiring decisions? How are your biases informing your relationships or who you pursue relationships with? How are your biases shaping your engagement, your interaction, your decision making with others in your life? Similarly, hold others accountable. When they exhibit or practice biases, especially known biases, make them aware, call them out on it, be an accountability partner around that. And finally, admit mistakes. We're human. Those biases will creep up on us, and before we know it, we're down a rabbit hole that we didn't realize we entered in the first place. Admit when we do make mistakes, even when our desires to course correct or mitigate our biases, they show themselves unassumingly in our lives. Admit when we make a mistake. Maybe we had a bias toward an individual before we ever gave them a chance to actually share who they are or what they do. Maybe there's biases that shape our perceptions around what's good or bad, likes and dislikes, but admit it when we catch it or when someone calls us out on it. You know what? You're absolutely right. That was a very biased statement or very biased mindset. And then course correct. Similarly, we want to admit it when others around us, even the closest ones to us, portray or exhibit biases. We want to be able to say, you know what, you're right. My friend is very biased in that circumstance. You know what? My child has been being very biased. Whomever it is, sometimes it's the closest people to us. So admit it when others make mistakes. Right? The idea is being intentional about acknowledging, about giving a space to discover the why, the ask, right? Allowing ourselves to expand beyond our comfort zone, to be accountable and to admit our mistakes. That's how you lead through bias. With that being said, thank you for tuning in to our daily Light Point. Real leaders, real talk, real time.